I think it's pretty cool that we can study the daily routines of successful individuals. It kind of gives you an insight into their decision making. And what I want to know is, what does it take to be successful? Now, success can be a lot of different things here. It doesn't necessarily have to mean financial success. It all depends on whatever you are trying to achieve. One mistake I think we are making is this over the top obsession with only morning routines. For some reason, we romanticize this idea that a strong morning routine will set your day up for success and fix all your problems. Now, I too am victim to this line of thinking, as earlier this year I tried following a Navy SEALs 4:30 a.m. morning routine. I'll link the video above over here. While I did learn a lot and found that a strong morning routine to be very beneficial, I honestly believe that a nightly routine is equally, if not more important. Because even if you follow the most productive 5 a.m. morning routine known to man, it ends up being useless if you go to bed at like 2 in the morning. Obviously, sleep is huge here, and it's something that we all know is extremely important, but many of us never reach that magical number of 8 hours. Usually I can get by with just about 4 to 5 hours of sleep, but my brain is extremely non-effective and I kind of just drag my feet through the day, and it feels like I'm some kind of zombie stuck on autopilot. However, when I do get at least 7 hours of sleep, this is when I am the most creative and I get the majority of my work done for these videos. So for the next 7 days, I wanted to try a daily routine that was a little different and contained good habits for the morning and night. Preferably someone from a creative figure from history that was alive pre-internet. I always find it interesting studying how people lived without technology. I feel like my generation doesn't appreciate how good we have it here, and I'm not excluding myself, but there is definitely something we can learn. For 7 days, I decided to follow the daily routine of Ludwig van Beethoven. I was hoping to learn something interesting from a guy that lived 200 years ago. Today is the last day of that journey, and I wanted to share what I learned from this experience. Here's how it started. Initially, I did some searching online for interesting daily routines of famous people, and there were a few that caught my eye. I thought that Henry James' writing routine was pretty cool. After dinner, he would write down some notes and plan out his 5 most important tasks to complete the next morning. Benjamin Franklin also had a pretty unique routine. He had this thing called examination of the day or something, where he would ask himself the same question every morning: what good shall I do this day? Which I thought was a brilliant idea. And he would follow this up at night by asking himself another question, which was, what good have I done today? Again, this is a very interesting and peculiar way of thinking. But it wasn't until I found Beethoven's daily routine that I actually got excited to try it out. Alright, so I was just going over the notes in Beethoven's nightly routine, and I noticed one thing that was really interesting and particular to me. It was he actually counted the amount of beans that he would use for a simple cup of coffee in the morning. And he got his number somehow down to a specific number, which was 60 coffee beans. Now, I don't know how he arrived at this number. It seems very strange. But what I did was I Googled how many grams are in a coffee bean, and it's like roughly 130 something milligrams. So 60 coffee beans roughly is about 8 grams of coffee. Now, I do have a coffee machine, but I don't have beans. I already have grounded up coffee there. So in order to get the 60 bean cup of coffee every day, I'm going to see how much 8 grams of coffee really is. So let's put this down right here. Let me see. Okay, so I do have a food scale that I'll use to weigh the coffee. See if you can see this. So I'll put this plate down. I should probably use a scoop. I guess I'll put this down like that. Get the coffee out. We'll zero the scale. So we're looking for 8 grams of coffee. So we'll go with one big scoop. See how much. This is what I usually use, one giant scoop. And that is, 11 grams, so he needs less than that. Like this. 8 grams. Okay, so something like this is Beethoven's perfect cup of coffee. So what I'll do is every morning I'll do just about a full scoop, maybe a little bit less, just so I can emulate his 60 bean cup of daily coffee. Very strange and bizarre, but I think this is the only way I can that I figured it out. The rest of Beethoven's day was fairly straightforward and pretty easy to follow. He continued his day by working till around 2 or 3 p.m. and took occasional breaks to take a walk. Now, Beethoven was a firm believer of long, vigorous walks. He believed that these walks would help him be more creative. So he carried a pencil in his pocket and some sheets of blank music paper with him wherever he went. In case he kind of like came up with an idea for a song, he would be able to write it down. This part was easy for me to follow. My day job requires a lot of walking, somewhere around 20,000 steps per day, and I usually track this with my Fitbit. But instead of taking notes to compose music, I use Google Docs on my phone to jot down any video ideas that came to me throughout the day. These videos take a lot of pre-planning, research, and editing to create every week. And I have a huge advantage here, as we can use modern technology as a medium to record our thoughts and ideas. If I brainstorm an idea for a new video, I'll quickly write it down in bullet form, usually just in my phone, while any longer form of thought requires more detail. I'll use the voice recorder on my phone. I am a firm believer that everyone in this world is creative, but creativity seems to always come sporadically throughout the day, so I think it's essential to write down your thoughts and put them into words whenever possible. As the day would wind down, Beethoven would stop working and grab the local newspaper at a tavern to read. The majority of his creative works occurred in the morning, so he rarely worked on his music in the evening. There wasn't too much for me to do here. I don't even know if newspapers exist anymore. Like whenever I go out, I don't really see any, and I can't even remember the last time I saw someone reading one. So I spent this time by reading Reddit, which I consider the newspaper of the world. Unfortunately, the majority of my time was spent reading about the coronavirus, which kind of sucks. But at this time of this recording, we're at day 80, around day 80, and anything remotely close to a tavern has been closed. Originally, my plan was to go to a coffee shop like Starbucks or Tim Hortons and get some time to myself to read. But considering the current circumstances our world is in right now, the best thing for me to do is to just stay home. There are some notes about Beethoven preferring to read at home, but this was specifically during the winter months. Dinner was usually very simple, soup and leftovers, which was almost accompanied by alcohol. This part was kind of rough, as Beethoven would drink up to 3 whole bottles of wine per day, which is like drinking an entire bottle of wine by yourself with every meal. Now, I do drink, but this is way too much for me to keep up with, so I didn't even bother trying. Unfortunately, Beethoven's heavy alcohol consumption did attribute to his death, so in hindsight, it's important to note that no matter how great a person is, no one is perfect, but we can definitely learn from the positive habits they followed. And while Beethoven is considered to be one of the most revolutionary musical composers of all time, his daily routine was anything but that. It was simple, easy to follow, and effective. His goal in life was clear: create beautiful music at all costs. And in order to get there, Beethoven's daily routine was focused around doing anything that made him feel creative. Waking up early, writing down notes, reading the newspaper, taking long walks, they all had a purpose. Or maybe the secret to his creativity was in the 60 bean cup of coffee. Thanks for watching.